Welcome to Santa Clarita Weekly, where we cover all things local in Santa Clarita Valley every Saturday morning at 9 on KQRU 107.9. Join hosts Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty as they uncover the latest news, events, sports highlights, and more, keeping you connected and engaged with what matters most in our hometown.
All right, so welcome back for another edition of Santa Clarita Weekly with Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty. I'm Sage. He's Tim. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. We're also on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find us online at santaclaritastar.com. So the Saugus Union School District Governing Board voted to put a bond measure on the November ballot to help retrofit school buildings for earthquakes and for other reasons. In sports, the Saugus High football team is looking to bounce back from a rough season. Coach Jason Bourne is counting on the return of impact players and a team hungry for success to turn things around. In the Olympics, the U.S. men's volleyball team with Saugus High grad David Smith won its pool and advanced to the elimination rounds. The Dodgers ended their worst road trip of the season with a win over the Oakland A's. The Dodgers added new players and have some injured players returning as the second half of the season gets underway. But one thing I did want to mention before we get started, I was able to attend Congressman Mike Garcia's town hall event at College of the Canyons last night. It was a packed house. So Congressman Garcia had a slideshow presentation before answering questions from constituents. I have over 2 hours of footage from that event. There's a lot to unpack from the event, and we're going to do that in a different episode. I really have to go through and get the highlights. Obviously, we can't air the entire thing, but maybe what we can do is get some highlights and use that for another episode. All right, so let's talk about the $187 million bond measure for the Saugus Union School District. So in November, the Saugus Union School District voters will decide on a $187 million bond measure to improve school facilities with a $30 tax per $100,000 of assessed property value. And the measure aims to generate $13 million annually and includes $415 million in total debt repayment, likely to run through 2058. So the bond will fund retrofitting for natural disaster preparedness, upgrading school safety systems, expanding early childhood education classrooms, and constructing or repairing facilities. And projects include enhancing security, upgrading parking lots, modernizing safety systems, improving accessibility, and replacing portable classrooms with permanent structures. So concerns about transparency have been raised, but the district plans to provide detailed information to the public. And this measure follows Measure EE, with focusing on safety and infrastructure needs identified since 2021. I was able to sit down with Catherine Cooper, a member of the Saugus School Board, to discuss that very bond measure. So let's listen to that right now. All right. Thank you, Catherine Cooper, for joining us today. And I know we have a lot of questions about this bond measure that is going to be on the ballot. I know we're just talking about that. You said, I know you guys voted for it to put it on the ballot the last school board meeting. And then now it's going down to Norwalk, right? And they're going to assign you're telling me they're going to assign a designation to that ballot measure. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be called yet. Correct. But we have some questions about it. So,
fire away.
What are the specific issues or needs that prompted the decision to propose this? I think what is it, $187 million bond measure?
That's correct. So way back in 1999, Assembly Bill 300 was passed. And the point of that bill was the earthquake codes changed in 1976, but for the most part, buildings that were built prior to that were not required to retroactively bring it up to code. But AB 300 said that school districts had to bring their buildings up to that code. It didn't give a specific timeline. But once we started doing rehab for the Measure EE bonds, we started to see there were items that needed to be addressed, and we could not do the rehab we wanted to do without also addressing the AB 300 items. And those were significantly more expensive than what was in the Measure EE bonds, but also most of those repairs were not specifically noted in the Measure EE bond, so we couldn't legally use the funds for that.
Yeah,
So
so we're
now
talking
that,
about seismic, right? Seismic retrofitting or for buildings.
correct. And you know what most people don't know is the building codes for schools are significantly more stringent and significantly higher than most buildings. And the reason for that is if there's a natural disaster, the hope is that those buildings will be so much better that they will stand and then the community can come to there for safety. And so that's why they're
Mm.
not only, higher quality, but also significantly more expensive to build or rehab.
So how were the schools and buildings identified that needed retrofitting or rehabilitation for under this measure? Did we
So
have building
initially, right after
inspectors?
the State Department of Architecture identified them solely based on the building plans that they had on file. So with no inspection. We originally had 7 sites on the list. When it became obvious that, that had to be addressed, the sites were inspected. Islands was actually taken off the list because, the item that they thought was an issue really wasn't an issue.
Okay, so let's talk about the taxes because I know nobody loves taxes, but
Nobody loves taxes.
can you explain the tax impact on homeowners in the district and how I think it was like what $30 per 100,000 of assessed value. How is that determined?
So we have bond counsel that does all the calculations and prepares it. $30 per 100,000 of assessed value is the max that it could be. It could possibly be less. The average is expected to be $29.95, so not a big difference. So for example, if you owned a 500,000, if your assessed value was 500,000, and that's separate from the fair market value. So if you go onto Zillow and your house is worth 800,000, but your assessed value is 500,000, the tax will be on the 500,000. And so that would just add about $150 a year to your tax bill. Also of note, the Measure E bond, which was passed way back in 2004, is about to be paid off. And so that was a cost of about $22 per 100,000 of assessed. So this year your taxes are going to go down $22 per 100,000. And then if the bond passes, it'll go back up 30. So it's, you're really only going to see an increase of $8. For me personally, the extra $150 or $200 a year is totally worth it. Like my kids aren't even in the district anymore, but I know that keeping schools, up to date and in good repair is good for property value, but more importantly, it's good for the kids. If kids have, a clean, up to date learning environment, they're going to do better. And kids that are better educated definitely benefit the entire community, whether or
Yeah.
not you have kids in the system.
And like you said, I think the whole community will go there if there's some major earthquake or something like that, because
Correct.
it is retrofitted for earthquakes, basically.
And how ironic that we had an earthquake last night.
That's true. We did last night we did have an earthquake. This is we're filming this Wednesday morning, so that was Tuesday night, right? But
Yes.
so what steps are being taken to ensure that there's transparency, and community involvement in the planning and execution of the projects that are going to be funded by this bond measure?
Well, I know on the board, we've been talking about it for about 3 years. So anybody that pays attention to the board meetings will have an idea what's going on. But in addition, in the few weeks leading up to the discussion at the board meeting, media releases were sent to all media outlets. I know that the information appeared in the Signal at least twice. It also went out on Parent Square, which I understand, only goes to families who go to school in the district. But that helped get the word out a little bit.
Okay, so I know the last school board meeting, you guys had some comments, right? You had some people show up, but how will the district address concerns from members of the community who feel like they didn't have enough time to really assess the measure before it was put on the ballot?
Well, to be clear, we're putting it on the ballot for the voters to vote. So we're not, we cannot pass the bond, like we cannot assess the tax without voter approval. So if anyone is, against it, all they have to do is go to the ballot and vote no, which
Mm,
is, it's out there for the community. If they need additional information, there's additional information on the district website, and everyone's always welcome to reach out to anyone in the district administration or a board member to ask any questions that they might have.
okay. So how will the proposed improvements, particularly the expansion of early childhood education classrooms and upgrades to learning environments, how are those going to enhance the educational outcomes for students?
Well, universal TK has been phased in over the last few years. So in 25, 26, it will be fully phased in, which means that I don't know if everyone realizes kindergarten is actually optional. TK is also optional. It's transitional kindergarten. Um, and it's the year prior to kindergarten, but now it's offered universally. So anyone that's got someone turning 4 in sometime in August will have the opportunity to put their child into transitional kindergarten. Um, it, you could say it takes the place of preschool. It's a little bit more academic, but it's offered to anyone at no cost. And so, studies have shown that kids that take preschool versus not taking preschool do better in college. So this offers the opportunity for someone who, say, can't afford preschool, they can put their child in transitional kindergarten. Now, transition kindergarten and transitional kindergarten classrooms have different requirements than other classrooms because of their age. They need to have, bathrooms that are immediately available from the classroom versus going outside the classroom to the bathroom. And so in order to provide those appropriate facilities for that age group, we do have to add. Right now, some of the TKs have taken over the kindergarten classrooms, which means the kindergartners are, in regular classrooms, which needs to change. Upgraded facilities is always the preference. In the 60s and 70s, when some of these buildings were built, Wi-Fi wasn't a thing, and now it's definitely a thing. So, in older facilities, you'll see the cables outside of the walls because they weren't installed, originally. And so providing, internet access, providing science and flex labs. Um, we're
Yeah.
preparing kids for the future, not the past. And so we need to have the most up-to-date facilities for them.
Okay. So let's say we're fast forwarding to the future. The construction has started, on a lot of these buildings. So what measures are going to be put into place to minimize the disruption to students' education during the construction and rehabilitation projects?
Well, each project, of course, will be planned on its own, and everything will be. It's hard to predict the future, but I will give an example of what the district did when they added a building to Rosedale. Bouquet Canyon School, which is up Wellston, um, was empty at the time, and so rather than having more kids around a construction zone or sending some of those kids to a site far away from their home, we were able to fix up the Bouquet Canyon School and house some of the Rosedale students there while the construction was going on. And then, because that had been worked on, we have now turned the Bouquet Canyon School into an early learning center, which is, an inclusive preschool. It includes the state preschool. So the district is very,
Yeah.
cognizant of spending money in the way that it will be most effective. And so the dollar spent on Bouquet Canyon School not only saved the money we would have spent housing those children in a temporary location, it also rehabbed that school so that we could use it for the current purpose.
So, what is the district's long-term vision for its facilities And how does this bond measure fit into that vision?
Well, we always want to have high quality learning facilities. Of course, we always want to meet the codes. We want safety for the kids. We want state-of-the-art facilities, green facilities, outdoor learning spaces. I don't know when the last time that you've toured a school, but like I have toured some of the schools, and the new learning areas are just amazing. They're set up for the kids to work in groups and projects and collaborative learning, and not just everybody sitting in a row anymore.
Oh, that's great. So thank you, Catherine, for joining us and answering those questions. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm really proud of our district and really excited to hopefully win again in November.
All right. Thank you. All right. So you are listening to KQRU 107.9 in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly on Saturday mornings at 9 and on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so you are listening to KQRU 107.9 in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly. So let's talk about sports, and we're going to continue our football previews. So the Saugus High football team is looking to rebound from a rough season. The team has plenty of returners and might be the most experienced team in the Foothill League. So Coach Jason Bourne is hoping that experience translates into wins this season. One of the returners is running back Ty Hall. He says he is recovering from knee injury a couple of years ago. It limited him in his sophomore season, but Hall says he feels better and stronger heading into this season. He talked about what he wants to accomplish and what he wants the Saugus team to accomplish this season. Another returning player is linebacker Rylan Connolly. He is one of the few seniors on the team and leads a veteran defensive unit. He talked about what he brings to the team as one of the senior leaders. Let's listen to Tim's interview with Ty Hall and Ryan Connolly.
Tell me about what you've been working on over the summer in practices, and what has the team been working on in particular over practice?
Me personally, I've been working on putting on weight and then increasing my strength and rehabilitating my knee, because I had knee surgery a few years ago, or 2 years ago, but it still hurts sometimes. And then the team as a whole, we're working on injury prevention. That's a big thing for us this year, because last year injuries tore us down quite a bit, but it's no excuse. But this year for sure, we're very heavy on strength, of course, and then beefing up and stuff like that.
Okay, so along with the injuries, it sounds like you may have some personal goals you want to accomplish. Have you set any, and what do you need to do to achieve those goals?
Right now, my goal is to hit 185. It's just a small goal. Right now I'm at like 177. So just continue eating properly and lifting all the time. And then on the field, my goal, honestly, it may seem like out of reach, but 1,000 yards, like for the season at least. So that's my goal.
And who are you looking forward to playing with this season? You're obviously one of the more experienced players on the team. Who are you excited about to be on the field with this season?
Honestly, everybody. I feel like we have a very talented team, especially this year. I mean, we've had talented teams throughout all of the years, but this team has really come together as a family and as just a crew that can dominate on the field. So I'm very excited to play with every single one.
Been working on over the summer, and what has the team been working on in particular over the summer in practices?
Well, the team, we've really been pushing it this summer. We practice pretty much every day, hit the weight room hard. We've been focusing on the weight room definitely this off season, making that a focus. We have a saying, build the armor, sharpen the sword, and that's what we do here in the weight room, is build that armor to have us go long distance in the season. Okay.
As the season is getting closer here, where do you think you have made the most improvements, and what do you still need to work on?
One thing that I do need to work on is just kind of motivating the team a little bit more. Being a senior, we have a small number of us, but we need to just be loud and pump up these guys, because we're going to do something good.
Who are you looking forward to playing with this season? You're obviously one of the more experienced players on the team. Is there anybody else on the team that you're looking forward to being with this year, and who are you looking for leadership? Who are you looking toward for leadership?
Yeah, I'm really excited to play with our junior quarterback Jake Nuttall. He's great, and then also just our defense as a unit. We've been working together in the off season and trying to get better at that, and I think it's going to be special.
Okay, and then finally, what are your expectations for this team? What do you want to see this team accomplish when the season's over?
Well, I want a Foothill League championship, and I want a CIF championship. That's just personal goals for me, and team goals for sure. And yeah.
All right. So Coach Jason Bourne said the Foothill League is always tough. His team went 0-10 last season and finished in last place in the Foothill League last season. He says it's a clean slate for his team heading into this season. The Foothill League will be competitive again, and he won't know how his team matches up until the games start. He is prepared for another tough season, but he has confidence in his players to meet the challenge. Let's listen to Tim's interview with Jason Bourne.
And how his team has been looking during the practices over the summer and the spring.
So basically just strength, conditioning, just developing their bodies for the rigors that football demands of them. So that's what our focus has primarily been, as well as teaching the basic fundamentals of what we do offensively, defensively, special teams wise. Just getting them ready for the season and preparing their minds and bodies for the challenge in front of them.
So who are some of the key returners on this team for the next football season?
I mean, we've got quite a few guys that have experience from last year. We've returning quarterbacks in both Jake Nuttall and Abe Rivera. We also have running backs, Ty Hall, Gage Sheklow, and returning receivers in Johnny Sabatucci, Deegan Grant, Matt Long. Defensively, we've got some returners at the linebacking core as well as in the secondary. Both Rylan Conley is a returner. On the offensive and defensive line, we've got Andrew Caceres, Jake Fernando, just to name a few of the guys that we've got coming back.
Okay, and are there any new players on this team? Anybody who's impressed you? Anybody who stood out for you in practices?
Yeah, we have several players that played on the Frosh Soft team last year. Landon Lattimore, Mano Ortega, Alexis Campoverde, just to name a couple. Trey Lewis, Pau Garrido playing on the offensive line, Eric Torres, a linebacker. So those guys we felt were ready enough to help us be competitive on the varsity level this year as 10th graders.
Okay. The Foothill League's always a tough league, and making the playoffs, getting an automatic playoff berth out of the Foothill League is always tough. Can you comment about how tough the league is going to be this year, and is it going to be any different than previous years?
No, I think every year it's you don't really know who's going to rise to the top in terms of the league standings until the games are being played. So every year is a clean slate, but no doubt about it that this league is one of the most challenging and competitive leagues in the southern section. I mean, we have 7 teams in it, and nobody's a walk in the park. Every week is going to be like a playoff game for us.
And what are your expectations for this team? Where do you want to see them be at the end of the season?
I just want them to meet their potential. We preach to them to be the best version of themselves in each and every day, and that's all I can ever ask of them. If they're achieving that, then the wins and losses take care of themselves.
All right. So Tim, what are the biggest challenges the Saugus team faces in competing in a tough Foothill League?
Right. So yeah, the Saugus football team had a really rough season last year, and a lot of it was due to injuries. Some of the key players were hurt; they were playing hurt. A lot of it had to do with just being not inexperienced, but not tested. I guess that's probably the better word. They had a lot of young players, a lot of underclassmen on this team, and like Ryan Connolly was talking about, there aren't very many seniors on this team. There's a handful of them, and they're a tight group, and they bring a lot of leadership to this team. Right? Ryan seems like a very confident player, and he is going to be able to have the defense at least focused on improving, focused on on being better than they were last year.
All right, so let's talk about the Olympics. So the U.S. Olympic men's volleyball team with Saugus High graduate David Smith won its pool in Paris and advanced to the elimination rounds. The men are 3-0 in pool play. The team beat Japan 3-1 to stay undefeated and win its pool play portion. So the United States beat Argentina and Germany in its other pool play matches. So David Smith is competing for Team USA for the 4th time in his Olympic career. He won a bronze medal with Team USA in the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. So let's talk about the Dodgers, which I know Tim and I are a little sad about at times, right? About what's going on. So the Dodgers had the worst road trip of the season. They went 3-5 against the Houston Astros, San Diego Padres, and Oakland A's. But it wasn't all bad news. Despite the struggles, the Dodgers are still in first place in the National League West standings. Another bright spot has been the emergence of Gavin Lux. So the Dodgers' second baseman has been the hottest hitter in the Dodgers lineup in July and has provided a spark when the team needed it most. He hit .299 in July with 4 home runs and 19 RBIs. In the last 2 weeks of July, he was hitting .385 with a home run and 9 RBIs. So the Dodgers have been playing with a number of players on the injured list, notably Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Miguel Rojas, and Freddie Freeman, who left the team during the series in Houston to be with his 3-year-old son, who was going through medical tests in Los Angeles. So, Tim, given the Dodgers' recent road trip struggles and the mounting injury list, how crucial is Gavin Lux's hot hitting to the team's success?
It's been pretty much everything. Gavin Lux has been keeping this team competitive, and I don't want to say it's all on him, but he's been a big part of why the Dodgers are not completely, going off a cliff right now. And he's been one of the hottest hitters in baseball since the All-Star break. He's been moved up in the lineup in the Dodgers. He's been batting third, sometimes batting fourth in this lineup, and being able to drive in runs, get key hits, and just being a clutch player at the plate. So he's been very important to the Dodgers' success, if you can call it that, lately. But he's basically been a key factor in keeping the Dodgers in the conversation for the best team in the National League. And he's been an important factor in seeing the Dodgers win some games when they're struggling to keep players healthy on the field right now.
All right. Well, that's, I'm glad they have Gavin Lux. But ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Tune in next week for more discussions about the news from Santa Clarita. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM at 9 on Saturday mornings. You can also watch us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and listen to us on SantaClaritaStar.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe to Santa Clarita Weekly online. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Santa Clarita Weekly. You can watch the show on Santa Clarita Star's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as listen in on the radio at KQRU 107.9. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com for more content and tune in right here to KQRU 107.9. A new voice for Santa